不好意思，老师早上他机车抛锚了，所以他要改搭计程车过来，那可能会晚一点点到，他预估是10点半。对，然后这不好意思，再稍等一下。好，谢谢。
Hi, how's everybody today? Yeah, sorry I'm late. My motorcycle, you know what a clutch cable is? You know what a clutch is? Uh, in how do you say in Chinese? Okay, I think the Japanese say kalachu or something like that. Yeah, clutchy. Okay, yeah, but yeah, the cable, it snapped, it broke, and it was funny because in Taiwan you're always within 200 meters of a motorcycle shop. You know, there's everywhere you go in Taiwan, there's always a motorcycle repair store within 200 meters, I think. So my clutch snapped. I was on Zhongqing Road and I'm looking and I see a Guangyang store. And so I pull in, but then the guy said, oh, 对不起，没有货. So he said, we'll have to order it. And I was like, what? So then I called my other mechanic, who's not too far away. He's over in Hankou, and he said, well, I'll come over. And so he just said, he brought his truck and he took my motorcycle. He also said 没有货, but he said, I'll take your motorcycle to my shop. And then fortunately, I was able to find a taxi. Because, you know, in Taichung, taxis are quite difficult to find. In Taipei, there's taxis everywhere. But in Taichung, so many times I'm waiting and waiting and waiting. There's no taxis. Even on Friday and Saturday, sometimes I'll go to like 7-Eleven and I'll try to call a taxi, and sometimes there's no taxis. So yeah, but fortunately I got a taxi, so that was good. Yeah. So anyhow, I thought we would start today with this article. I don't know, I saw this on the news, and you probably saw in the news too. This is a Taiwan story, and it says FDA, which I think stands for Food and Drug Administration or something like that, launches food safety inspections after 520 fall ill. Now, you know what does ill mean? Sick, yeah. But often when we get sick, we say, you could say someone got ill, but often you can also say someone fell ill. Okay, so, you know, it seems kind of strange. Fall is like, you know, to fall down, but this is a term we don't usually say they fell sick. Well, I guess no, we could say they fell sick. So anyhow, yeah, this word fall or fell can be used to get sick. Okay, they fell ill, they fell sick. Yeah, so anyhow, why don't we say together, fall ill. Fall ill. And ill is a very good word because it's not only for sickness, but if you say, sometimes, for example, we say someone has an ill will. Yeah. And so someone shows ill will towards somebody, it means what? So we can talk about goodwill, right? Goodwill towards somebody. I'm showing kindness or goodness towards somebody. But often we also can say ill will or bad. I guess we could say bad will too. But ill will is a very common expression to show it's like the opposite of goodwill. So yeah, anyhow, so this word ill gets used in different ways. Yeah. Okay, so let's see what this article is about. Maybe you've seen this already. It says here, the Food and Drug Administration yesterday said it was launching a special food safety inspection campaign targeting restaurants and stalls serving foreign cuisine after 520 people reportedly fell ill after eating at a banh mi shop in Taoyuan. Now, I don't know if you know what banh mi is, but that's a Vietnamese word from Yunnan. It's a kind of Vietnamese sandwich, and it's very good, actually. The way they make it is they use, you know, Vietnam used to be a French colony, right? 殖民地, right? From 法国. And so this banh mi sandwich uses French bread, you know, 法国面包, and they slice it, and then they put all kinds of vegetables and meat inside, and it's quite good. It's actually very tasty. It's very popular not only in Vietnam, but if you go to 美国 or America or France or many other countries, they have a lot of these banh mi sandwiches. They're very fresh and tasty. So anyhow, it says 520 people reportedly fell ill after eating at a banh mi shop in Taoyuan. So this Food and Drug Administration, of course, that's a government organization that's in charge of overseeing or supervising or monitoring food and drugs. And they're launching this special food safety inspection campaign. Now, we've talked about campaign. Campaign, what would be another simple way of saying campaign? Like a what? Activity or action to do something. Like especially if it's a big organized action, like we're going to have a campaign against air pollution or a campaign for traffic safety. So this is a food safety inspection campaign targeting, okay? So they're going to focus on restaurants and stalls. What is a stall? Yeah, you could say it's a 路边摊位. Stall gets used in many different ways, okay? So it could be like a 摊位, or sometimes we say a stand, S-T-A-N-D, like, you know, like to 站起来, but we say stand as a 名词. You could say a street stand or a vendor stand or a vendor stall. But stall can also be used to, when I think of stall, the most common stall is in a bathroom. You know, 厕所, they have stalls, right? There's a, you know, where people sit on the toilet, there's these walls, right? And we call those stalls as well because they're separated by these walls or these little areas. So that's also called a toilet stall, okay? So why don't we say together, stall, stall. Now, stall has a completely different meaning as a 动词. Do you know what it means to stall? To slow down or to even stop, okay? So I'll give you a good example. When I was, well, actually that didn't happen to me today, but sometimes you're driving your car or your motorcycle and the engine stalls. It means the engine just stops running. And you say, my car is stalled on the side of the road, or my engine stalled and I don't know why. Okay, so it means it just stopped running. But you can also say this project, let's say you have or a campaign or some activity has stalled. It means it stopped. And usually it means there's a problem because if something stalls, things are not normal. So if you say this project was stalled because of we lacked enough people, or this project stalled after the government said no. Okay, so anything that gets in our way and stops us from going, we say it's stalled. Okay, so one more time, stalls. Stalls. Okay, now I think you all know this, but I'll just remind you. Cuisine, of course, means a what? What's this? Food. Yeah, it's like a kind of food. Like we say Taiwan has a very rich cuisine, or there is many different kinds of cuisine around the world. And when we say this word, remember it has a W sound, right? So it's not this UI. Think of this almost as being like a W. So we say quick, like qua, right? Almost like a Q, almost qua. Cuisine. Cuisine. Okay, so I'm sure you all have your favorite cuisine. Maybe it's Taiwanese cuisine or American cuisine. I'll tell you a very funny, while we're talking about cuisine, just yesterday I went to a brand new restaurant that was opened by two Americans in Taichung, and they already have another restaurant. It's actually quite popular. It's called Shuangcheng. It's like an all-day American breakfast, American hamburgers. But they just opened a second restaurant, and this restaurant is completely different. And this is a concept, an idea that I have been thinking about for many, many years, and I've been wondering, how would this do in Taiwan? And this restaurant sells American Chinese food, okay? So American Chinese food. If you've ever been to America and you go and eat at a Chinese restaurant, the food does not taste like Taiwan. It's like an American-style Chinese food. So these two guys, for many, when I heard they were opening an American Chinese restaurant, I was very curious. They only opened last Friday. So I went over there, and sure enough, their menu is very, like if you go to美国and you go to a Chinese restaurant, there's certain dishes that you will never see in Taiwan. It's right on, what's the name of that road? It's right behind Sogo Baiho Gongsu. It's the restaurant is brand new, but it's on what's the name of that road? You know, if you're coming from, I'll describe it to you. You know, if you're coming from, here, I'll draw you a little map. If this is Taiwan Dadao, right? And Sogo is right here, right? And this is Meicun Lu, right? Okay, so if you're coming from Shitun over there, there's a 小巷子 here, right? Down the side of Sogo. And then over here, there's a, let me think, there's a 公园 right here. And Huameijie is here, right? So it's right around here. Okay. The other restaurant, Shuangcheng, is right here on the corner. And this is like just up here. Sogo is here. And then yeah, it's right here. So I forget what this Xiaoxiang, this street is here. It's a very narrow street, but it's right behind Sogo. And it's called it's got a very American, if you ever go to American Chinese restaurants, they all have very similar names. My friends always joke about it. So if you go to America, you'll hear names like, I always hear names like Golden Palace, okay? Golden Palace, or Jade Palace, okay? Or, something with the word panda, okay? So there's a very, very popular American Chinese chain, fast food in America. It's called Panda Express. Yeah. This is like the 麦当劳 of American Chinese food in 美国. Everybody knows Panda Express. So if you want to get fast food, American Chinese food, you go to Panda Express. So they all have these very similar names. So this new restaurant here is called, again, this sounds like an American Chinese restaurant. It's called the Golden Crane. You know what a crane is a bird. How do you say it? A white bird with very long wings. How do you say it in Chinese? Does anyone know crane? Is it? Okay, big bird. So it's called Golden Crane. So when I saw this name, I thought that's a very American Chinese restaurant name. That's the kind of name you would see there. So anyhow, it's called Golden Crane, and the menu is very 简单的. But the first dish I ordered yesterday was a dish that if you go to Panda Express in Meiguo, everybody orders this dish. It's called orange chicken. Okay, it's a very popular American Chinese dish, and it was good. It tastes just like Panda Express. Okay, but there's another dish. Sorry, I'm making a little guangao here, but there's another dish that they have that's very, very interesting. It's one of the most popular American Chinese dishes in Meiguo, and it was invented by a Taiwanese shifu in Meiguo, and it's called it's called General Cho's chicken. You know, generals like Jun Jiang, yeah. So it's called General Cho's chicken. And to me, it tastes a little bit like Tang Su Li Ji or Tang. It has that flavor to it, but it's very, very popular. All Americans know this dish. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. So if you read the history of this dish, it's very. I heard that there was. I forget the exact story, but there was this chef from Taiwan was in Meiguo, and he needed to make a dish real quickly, and he didn't know what to do. So he made this dish. And he gave it this name, and then everyone loved it, and it spread all across America. So if you go to any American Chinese restaurant in Meiguo, you will see this dish. It's always there, and it came from Taiwanese chef, Taiwanese cook. So anyhow, if you want American Chinese cuisine, you can try it. I am very, very curious. Honestly, I'm very curious to know how Taiwanese will think of this food, because it's different. It's similar, but it's different, right? I think maybe if you taste the flavor, it's stronger flavor. It's sweeter, more 甜的. And it has a little bit of a, I think it has kind of a Guangdong flavor to it, because, in Meiguo, there are a lot of Guangdong Ren there. And so I think a lot of the food is influenced by Guangdong Thai. But try it and tell me what you think. Because I am very curious. For many, many years, I've told my friends they should open an American Chinese restaurant in Taiwan. And finally, now they have it. So anyhow, back to this word. Why don't we say it one more time? Cuisine. Cuisine. Okay, so let's read this. The Food and Drug Administration yesterday said it was launching A special food safety inspection campaign. Targeting restaurants and stalls serving foreign cuisine. After 520 people reportedly fell ill after eating at a banh mi shop in Taoyuan. Okay, so let's go on here. It says the Taoyuan Department of Public Health on Saturday said it received hundreds of suspected food poisoning reports of people who had consumed food from a banh mi vendor at Zhongzheng Market in Taoyuan's Zhongli district on Wednesday and Thursday last week. Okay, so you know what food poisoning is, right? Okay, so if you eat food and it's not good, right? There's something, maybe it's too old, maybe it's rotten, maybe there's something in it, the food, and you feel sick. It's probably happened to all of us, right? You eat somewhere and you feel really bad afterwards, and you think there was something wrong with this food. I will tell you, my sister sometimes thinks it's terrible, but because I live by myself, sometimes I keep food too long, right? Now, I've never gotten sick, but my sister's like, why don't you just throw that away? And I'm like, no, it's still okay. You know, it's in the refrigerator. It's okay. So, but yeah, fortunately, I have not gotten food poisoning. So why don't we say it together? Food poisoning. Food poisoning. Okay, so poison, of course, is 毒, right? So if you're poisoned, now, of course, poison can be a 动词 as well, right? You can say, I was poisoned by the chemicals, or he was poisoned by the bad food, okay? So that it can be used as a 名词 or 动词. So it received hundreds of suspected food poisoning reports. So, of course, they don't know 100%, but they suspect, they think, probably, they suspect, you know, when you suspect something, you think it's probably true or it could be true. So why don't we say it together? Suspected. Suspected. Okay, of people who had consumed. And what would be another simple word for this? Eaten, right? Now, we're all consumers, you know, 消费者, right? We consume all kinds of things. We consume food, we consume oil, we consume, not eating, we don't eat oil. Well, there's cooking oil, but we consume anything that we use, we consume. Okay, we consume energy, electricity. So anyhow, this is a good word. Why don't we say it together? Consumed. Consumed. Which all makes us all, why don't we say it together with an R? Consumer. Consumer. Okay, so here we say, you know, like a vendor. Of course, a vendor is a person or a group of people who sell something, but it could also be like we say a vendor stall. Remember, we use the word stall or vendor stand. Someone who's selling stuff. And usually when we use the word vendor, the idea is usually of a small business, not a big business. Not like a department store or a supermarket, but like maybe one person selling some food. So every year, you know, when we have the COMPASS Food and Music Festival, the 康百视美新乐节, we have all these vendors. They're usually like a 小摊位, and they sell something. So we call those vendors. So why don't we say together, vendor? Vendor. Okay. Okay, so let's read this together. The Taoyuan Department of Public Health on Saturday said it received hundreds of suspected food poisoning reports. Okay, let's say this part again. Suspected food poisoning reports of people who had consumed food from a banh mi vendor at the Zhongzheng Market in Taoyuan's Zhongli district. on Wednesday and Thursday last week. Okay. So it says here, as of Monday, specimens from 7 people and 3 food samples had tested positive for salmonella, it said, adding that an egg yolk paste was suspected to be the source of the contamination. Now, this word here comes from the word the 动词, contaminate. What does, with an E, T-E, what does contaminate mean? Yeah, it's like to pollute, but it's almost like the idea, I mean, pollute, yeah, we could say, but pollute is usually used more for like the environment, right? The 环境. But we can say to contaminate is often used for, food and water and things like that, things that we might consume, that we might take in. So you can say, don't eat that, it's been contaminated, that food is contaminated. Or don't drink that water, it's been contaminated with oil or whatever. Or don't use that cooking oil, it's been contaminated. So anything that's been, like he said, polluted, but there's something bad inside that water or oil or food or whatever. Do you all understand that? Contaminate? Okay, yeah. Now, we can use the word pollute or contaminate for other ideas, right? For example, you can say, don't pollute your mind with, or don't contaminate your mind with things that are too negative, right? Sometimes if you look on the internet, 网路上, there's all this garbage, bad stuff. You say, don't contaminate your mind or pollute your mind with those things, okay? Maybe they're just worthless things. So the word pollute is more like used for, 污染, like 空气 or air pollution, water pollution, and then. So why don't we say this together as a verb with a te? Contaminate. Contaminate. And then this word here as a noun means contamination. Contamination. Right, and often if we want to use it as a 形容词, we say it is contaminated, or the contaminated water. So why don't we say it too? Contaminated. Contaminated. Okay, and then let's review this word, pollute. Pollute. And then, of course, pollution. Pollution. And then, as a 形容词, polluted. Polluted. Okay, so yeah, these are not good things. Okay, so it says here, what is a specimen? Yeah, it's like a sample. It's actually very similar to this word, right? So often if you're doing scientific research or medical research, you need a specimen. Maybe it's some blood or urine or stool or even a skin cell specimen. It's a little bit of something that you can test, okay? Jianqi. Okay. That's a 名词. That's a noun. Okay. Okay, so why don't we say together specimens? Specimens. Okay. And then of course this other word here, samples. Samples. Okay. So these words are similar, but and they can be used in a similar. Sample can be used instead of specimen, but you cannot go the other way, right? For example, there are certain times we say sample that we do not say specimen. I'll give you a great example. If you go to 好市多 Costco, right? There's many places where they give you samples, right? You can sample their steak, you can sample their juice, you can sample their wine. People love that. They line up, 排队 to try the samples. We cannot call that specimens. If you did, it would sound very 很可怕, right? You say, try the specimen. Yeah, so we say samples in that case. So yeah, so here it's specimens from 7 people and 3 food samples. They took a sample of the food. It tested positive for, do you know what this is, salmonella? It's a kind of bacteria, okay? Of course, How do we say bacteria in Chinese? Yeah, so that's an R. And then, of course, we know Bingdu is virus, right? But bacteria is different. So why don't we say together bacteria, bacteria, and then salmonella, salmonella. It's very funny because I don't know why this word salmon is, the fish, right? It's very good fish. But I don't know why this bacteria has that name. Yeah, but it can make you very sick, obviously. Yeah. Okay, and of course, egg yolk is the 蛋黄, right? Yeah. So egg yolk. And the white part is called egg white. Okay, so we have the egg white, we have the egg shell, egg white, egg yolk. There's 3 parts there. So egg yolk paste. And what is a paste? Jiang, or I think better is like a gao, right? Do we say gao? Like we say ya gao, right? Is a toothpaste, right? So anything, jiang is more like a sauce, okay? But a paste is thicker, okay? So if we say I like to, like if you have ketchup, or there's many kinds of sauces, but a paste is very, very thick. It's much thicker than a sauce. I'm trying to think of a paste that we use in our food. Yeah, I'm not sure. Anyhow, I think you know what I mean. So why don't we say together, paste, paste. Now, I will say paste is a word that we used to use, not so much today, but it's a word that we used to use sometimes for the word, instead of the word glue. You know what glue is, right? Yeah. So if you want to stick something together, you'll use paste or glue to stick it together. But today I don't hear this word used as much for glue. It's usually we just say glue. Okay. Okay, any questions about this? Okay, so let's read this. When we say as of Monday, it means up until up until Monday. When we say until Monday, 到礼拜一. Okay, so why don't we say together, as of Monday, specimens from 7 people and 3 food samples had tested positive for salmonella, it said, adding that an egg yolk paste was suspected to be the source of the contamination. Let's say that word again, contamination. Okay, so the egg yolk paste was a source. It means the contamination came from or originated in the egg. The contamination originated in the egg yolk paste. That's where it started from. Okay, that's a photo caption. Let's go on. It says here, FDA Deputy Director Lin Jinfu said yesterday that salmonella is a common pathogenic bacteria, there's that word, that causes food poisoning starting from yesterday to November. The agency is inspecting more than 200 shops and vendors selling foreign cuisine, especially those that sell ready-to-eat foods and salads. Okay, so here we have this 3 words become a 形容词, right? Ready to eat. That means like it's there, you don't have, it's ready to go, right? You don't have to cook, it's ready, yeah. I guess we could say like McDonald's or fast food, that's ready to eat food, right? You just grab it and you go. Yes. I don't even know how do you say that in Chinese, but we say a I hope I'm spelling this right. But often we just say deli for short. Delicatessen, do you know what that means? It's a kind of, it's very popular in the West. It's like you go and they have salads and they have all these ingredients. They might have bread. And basically you just tell them what you want. and they create a meal for you. And everything's cooked. It's already done or fresh, like salad, it's fresh, of course, it's not cooked. So if you go to an American deli, we often say deli, you might say, well, I want a sandwich, right? So you say, well, I want this kind of mianbao, and I want this meat, and I want this vegetable, and I want this, and they just put together. It's a little bit like Subway, in Taiwan they have Subway. But a deli often has much, much more than just, like Subway is just for sandwiches. A deli will often have many things. So it's a very common word. I think it's French. But why don't we say it together? Delicatessen. Delicatessen. And then let's just say this part, deli. Deli. Yeah. So anyhow, those are ready-to-eat foods. Now, there's this word, this expression is similar to another expression we sometimes hear is ready-to-wear clothing. And this is not used too much today because today most clothes you buy are ready to wear. But in the old days, they would make clothes for you, right? You had to have them tailor-made. But today, it's ready to wear. You go to the store, you buy it, and you put it on. It's ready to go. So we say ready to wear. So yeah, that's not as common. So here we say he's describing this salmonella is a common. Now, of course, common is, it's everywhere. I'm sure if you looked around, you'd find salmonella here. Pathogen is, something that causes sickness. We say it's pathogenic. Now, this is not a word that we use every day. It's more of a medical word, medical term. But if you hear the word pathogen, if we say pathogen, it's like a virus or bacteria, something that makes you sick. But a pathogenic, so it means make you sick. Why don't we say together, pathogenic? Pathogenic. Okay, and there's that word again, bacteria, that causes food poisoning. Okay, so anyhow, it's very common, and it's something, even in your own kitchen, you have to be careful that there's no salmonella. Okay, so let's read this together. FDA Deputy Director Lin Jinfu yesterday said that salmonella is a common pathogenic bacteria. Pathogenic bacteria that causes food poisoning. And starting from yesterday to November, the agency is inspecting more than 200 shops and vendors selling foreign cuisine, especially those that sell ready-to-eat foods and salads. Right, okay. So here it says, FDA Division of Food Safety official Zheng Weizhi said that salmonella bacteria are widely found in domestic and wild animals and can be transmitted through contaminated food, water, the environment, and the fecal-oral route. Okay, now this is fecal refers to basically 大便. Okay, yeah, and another word for this is we say feces. FECES is basically a technical word, a official word for any kind of 大便. From animals, from humans, from anybody, we say feces. Okay, so why don't we say together, feces? Feces. And so from that word we have, this becomes a 形容, so we say fecal. And what does oral mean? Mouth, okay? So if you were eating something and there was maybe the food was not cleaned properly, it was dirty, and you ate it, that's what it means by, we say root means like 路线, right? So we say fecal oral route means that there was something there and somehow it got into you ate it, okay? So that's why it's important to clean your food. that's also why they say after you use the toilet, you should wash your hands, right? Because that's also part of this fecal oral route. Is that's, you know, so you always teach the children, wash your hands after you use the bathroom. That's why also I know that at restaurants, they're very, very strict about their staff have to wash their hands very carefully after they go to the toilet. Okay. So anyhow, here it says these salmonella bacteria are widely found. What does widely mean? What is this? Yeah, widely means they're found everywhere. They're very common. Okay. Widely found in domestic and wild animals. And what is a domestic animal? Right. So it means an animal that, well, it doesn't have to be your home, but it means it's an animal that is, I guess we could say it's an animal that, I don't know if this is a good way to put it, but it's an animal that's tame, right? It's not wild. So domestic animal could include, of course, your cat or your dog, but it could also include cows and goats and sheep and chickens, right? Because they're on farms, and we say those animals are domesticated. They're not wild. They're not running around outside in the wilderness. Okay. So now domestic has another meaning, of course, we've talked about before, which means inside your country, right? So if you're going to take an airplane, it might be a domestic flight, like if you're flying to Penghu or Hualien, but it might be an international flight if you're going to Hong Kong or somewhere else. Okay, so this word is a good word to know. Why don't we say together, domestic? Domestic. And if you take an animal and you make it domestic, we add the word, it's C-A-T-E, domesticate, becomes a 动词. You can say this animal has been domesticated, or you can say humans domesticated horses or dogs, you know, maybe, I don't know, thousands or hundreds or thousands of years ago. They were wild, and then we domesticated them. We made them domesticated. Okay, any questions? Okay. I know there's tigers that are tame. I mean, they're raised, or lions too, but I think they're still considered wild animals. You still have to be careful. I saw a video on YouTube where a guy has raised a lion, not a tiger, a 狮子, from the time it was very, very small, and now it's fully grown. And it's really quite funny because the lion is in a big area, right? Every time he opens the door, the lion jumps on him. I mean, the lion likes him a lot, right? But the lion literally runs and jumps, and the lion's bigger than him, jumps on top of him, and then he takes the lion out for a walk. But that lion is, you know, they have to be careful because that lion, they said, is only friendly with him. Maybe if other people are there, they have to be careful. So, yeah, it's not a really domesticated animal. It's just a wild animal that's been tamed. Okay, so, I forgot to mention. So, you know the word tame, T-A-M-E. If something is tame, it means it's been trained. It's not. It's well behaved, right? And so sometimes we say to domesticate an animal, you have to tame it, right? You have to make it not wild. You have to train it to obey you or to do what you want. So sometimes people might say, "Is that dog tame? Is that dog okay?" You say that dog is very tame. Don't worry about it. But we use the word tame also to say it's not outrageous. It's not crazy. Like you say, this movie is very tame compared to other movies. It means it's not crazy or out of control or wild or violent or something like that. Yeah. So anyhow, the word tame is a good word to know. So that's where we say, you just asked about a tiger or a lion. We can say he tamed the tiger or a lion. Or even the person who does that, we say a lion tamer or lion trainer. They train the lions to obey them. But the lions are still wild. I mean, they're still wild animals. Okay? So why don't we say together, tame? Tame. Okay. So that's, and we haven't said this yet. Fecal oral. Fecal oral. Right. So oral is a very common word, right? If you say, how do I take this medicine? You say, well, you should take that medicine orally. It means you have to eat it. You have to put it in your mouth and eat it. Okay, so anything that's oral comes through your mouth. Okay, so why don't we? So anyhow, in fact, I think there's a 牙膏牙刷 company called Oral-B or something like that. Yeah. Okay, so why don't we read this together? FDA Division of Food Safety official Zheng Weizhi said that salmonella bacteria, let's say it again, salmonella bacteria are widely found in domestic and wild animals and can be transmitted through contaminated food. Let's say it again, contaminated food, water, the environment, and the fecal oral route. Okay, again, fecal oral route. Now, of course, route, we can also say route, right? Route, route, it's all the same. They're both okay. Some people say route, some people say route. Oh, okay. Yeah. So, and transmit, of course, is to try, you can say, how is COVID-19 is easily transmitted to other people, because one person's sick and the next person gets sick. Transmit. Of course, you can also transmit other things like a radio signal, right? If you listen to the radio, 广播台, they transmit their signal or their program to people. Okay. Okay. Let's read a couple more paragraphs and then we'll go to a different story. It says, salmonella infection is usually caused by eating raw or undercooked eggs or egg products, dairy products, meat and poultry, contaminated fresh fruit and vegetables, and even processed foods, he said. Okay, now, you know what raw is, right? Raw is uncooked, right? But here they say undercooked. It means that you've cooked it, but it's not cooked enough, right? Like whenever I eat 猪肉, pork, right? I'm very careful that, that should be completely, fully cooked, right? Whereas, beef, if you 牛肉, you can be like, 三分熟 or 五分熟 or whatever. It's okay. I've even had raw beef before. But pork, I think you should always cook. Chicken also, you should cook it carefully. You can't be, it has to be well done, yeah. So why don't we say together, undercooked, undercooked, raw, raw. Okay, what is a dairy product? Yeah, anything with milk, okay? So if you say, in America, we have many dairy farms. And a dairy farm is basically a farm that produces what? Milk. Yeah, it has many cows. So we say a dairy farm. If you say dairy products, that would include what? Cheese, yeah, butter, right? What else? Milk, of course. Ice cream, yeah, my favorite. Okay, so why don't we say it together? Dairy products. Dairy products. Okay, and what is, meat, of course. What is poultry? Yeah, but not just chicken. What else? Duck? Yeah, what else? What do Americans love to eat? Turkey, yeah, there we go, turkey. So any kind of a bird, like I shouldn't say any kind of birds, but usually we say, like you said, ducks, chickens, geese, turkeys, that's all poultry. Why don't we say together, poultry? Poultry. Okay, so if you have a poultry farm, then they usually raise ducks or chickens or something like that, or geese. Okay, so here we also have contaminated fresh fruit and vegetables and even processed food. Now, processed food, of course, means that it's gone through, like a factory, A lot of the food we eat today you buy at the supermarket is processed food. In fact, many, many doctors and scientists say we should eat less processed food and eat more fresh food, right? not something you buy in a can or a box, but something that's you buy, that's fresh. Okay, so why don't we say together, processed foods. Processed foods. I know Americans eat way too many processed foods. I mean, everything's processed, it seems. Okay. Yeah, I do. I should eat less of it. You said luncheon meat, okay. Did I tell you one of my favorite luncheon meats? I mean, I love this. Another guangao here from me. It's Spam. Have you heard of Spam? Okay. Yeah, they have it at Costco. They also if you go to the what used to be Di Guangchang, now it's called what is it called? Yeah. They changed the name, ASEAN Square. But where it used to be Di Guangchang, there's many the 外籍人士, they have stores there. Especially the stores that sell Filipino products. Filipinos love Spam. Anyone from anywhere in World War II, where the Americans were, they love Spam, like Korea, Japan, Philippines, Hawaii, all those Pacific islands, they love Spam. It's a processed meat product. So there's pork. I think it's mostly pork. No, I think it's mostly pork. But they mix it all up. It's probably like a hot dog. Hot dog, it's like they throw everything in there and then they make it into this meat. But yeah, it's very, very good. I think it's good. Yeah, but it's very processed. So probably it's not good to eat too much Spam. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so let's read this together. Salmonella infection is usually caused by eating raw or undercooked eggs or egg products. Dairy products, meat and poultry, contaminated fresh fruit and vegetables, and even processed foods, he said. Okay, so here's some more foods. It says eggshells can be contaminated with salmonella from chicken feces. Now there's that word feces, right? So the bacteria could spread when food handlers prepare uncooked egg products such as egg yolk paste, mayonnaise, salad dressing, or tiramisu. I didn't think about that one. He said, adding that they should use washed eggs or pasteurized liquid eggs to prevent bacterial contamination. Okay, so there's some interesting words here. Uncooked egg products such as egg yolk paste. We talked about that. Does everybody know what mayonnaise is? Was it Mainai what? Mainai jiang. Okay. So why don't we say together mayonnaise? Mayonnaise. Now, many Americans, for short, they just say mayo. Yeah, they say, I want some mayo on my sandwich. But you can say mayo or mayonnaise. Okay, very common product. Okay, salad dressing, of course, is salad jiang, right? And you know what tiramisu is, right? Very popular dessert. I don't know why tiramisu is a problem. Tiramisu uses raw eggs? I'm not sure. But I know tiramisu is not baked. You don't put it in the kaoxiang. It's made in a different way, but I'm not a chef, so I don't know. Why don't we say together, tiramisu? Tiramisu. Okay, now it says they should use washed eggs or pasteurized liquid eggs. Now, liquid eggs, of course, you turn them into liquid, and yeah, I don't know how that works. But this is a very interesting word. What does pasteurized mean? Does everyone know? almost all the milk you drink, I think, is pasteurized. They put the milk through a special heating process to kill the bacteria, and then you can drink it. Now, there is a kind of milk called raw milk, and raw milk is not pasteurized. It comes straight out of the cow, and you drink it. And some people like raw milk, or they use it for specific reasons. But I know I've talked to people before, and they want to use raw milk for something. It's not pasteurized. But this pasteurized is a very interesting word because it comes from the guy who invented it. His name was Louis Pasteur. Yeah. And his last name was Pasteur. And his name was turned into this 动词 or the 形容词. Okay, so why don't we say it together? Pasteurized. Pasteurized. Right, so in America, if you buy milk, usually on the side of the box, it'll say pasteurized milk. Okay, so yeah. Okay, any questions? Okay, so let's read this. Eggshells can be contaminated with salmonella from chicken feces. So bacteria could spread when food handlers prepare uncooked egg products, such as egg yolk paste, mayonnaise, salad dressing, or tiramisu. Tiramisu, he said, adding that they should use washed eggs or pasteurized liquid eggs to prevent bacterial contamination. Let's say this last two words, bacterial contamination. Okay, yeah. Okay, I think that's all we need to look at for this article. Are there any questions on this? Yeah, just, be careful when you eat your food or prepare your food. You want to make sure it's safe. Okay, so let's go to a different story. Okay, so here's a very different story. It says China tips into deflation as recovery efforts falter. Okay, so you know what deflation is? What is inflation? Right, everyone's been talking about inflation, so that's inflation. But deflation means your prices start to fall, right? I think. Yeah. How do you say in Chinese? Deflation? Okay. Yeah. So it's not good. It's not a good thing. Why don't we say together, deflation? Deflation. Now, you know what these words come from, right? What's the original word? Yeah, or anything that you blow up, right? So, or your tire, like your car or your motorcycle, right? If you have to put air in something, you inflate the tire. Or if you have to take out air from something like a balloon, that's a deflate. Okay, so you inflate something, you blow it up, or you deflate it, you shrink it down, you take the air out of it. So anyhow, why don't we say together, inflate. Inflate. deflate. Deflate. Right. So from those words, we get inflation and deflation. So it says here, China tips into deflation. Now, tip means kind of like to fall, right? To tip into, to go into. So here there means their economy has gone into deflation as recovery efforts, recovery, of course, they're trying to help their economy recover, falter. And I think we said this word before. What does to falter mean? Yeah, to slow down or to run into trouble. I'll tell you a word, when I think of falter, it's very similar to the word stumble. Okay? So if you're walking along and you trip, you fall, right? It's like you stumble, you fall. So if you're trying to do something and you stumble in your effort, it means that you're having problems. Or falter means if you're trying to do something and then you start to get tired and you slow down and you can't do it, then you say, I faltered. Or you say he took his faltering steps, means that they're slowing down and they're not as coordinated. So he faltered in his speech. So let's say you're giving a 演讲 and you start and it's very strong and very good, but then as you go along, you start to forget things and then you lose your confidence, and then you say, he faltered in his speech. Or you can say his speech was faltering. It wasn't very clear. It wasn't very smooth. It wasn't very strong. So anyhow, it's the idea of slowing down and stopping or running into trouble. So why don't we say together, falter. Falter. And if you want to turn that into a 形容词, it'd be faltering with an ing. Why don't we say together, faltering. Faltering. Let's just say that word too, stumble. Stumble. Okay. So obviously things are not going so well for the economy there. So I'll read this. It says, China's consumer sector fell into deflation and factory gate prices extended declines last month as the world's second largest economy struggled to revive demand and pressure mounted on Beijing to release more direct policy stimulus. Okay, there's some technical words here, but anyhow, consumer we talked about earlier today, right? So when we say consumer sector, it means the part of your economy that is with consumers, right? When you go out and you go shopping, you go to a restaurant, you buy things, that's part of the consumer sector. That's part of the consumer side of the economy. So the consumer sector fell into deflation. Factory gate prices, that means I think that means like your 批发, your wholesale prices, right? When you buy out of the factory, if you go to the factory, the 工厂, and you buy a product, we say that would be a factory gate price. Now, if we want to use the word 批发, we say wholesale. So you say, what is the wholesale price on that product? You know, right now I can say this is the market price, or this is what I pay, but what is the wholesale price? Okay, so why don't we say together, wholesale. Wholesale. Okay, so it says here, factory gate prices extended declines. It means continued. The decline means to go down, right? So it means the prices kept dropping and they kept going down. They extended their decline. Okay, and decline means to fall. If you say he is in his declining years, that means he's in his old age. His years, his time is going down. Or declining health. Declining health means your health is dropping. It's going down. It's getting worse. So here it says declining, extended declines. It means declines. The prices declined last month as the world's second largest economy struggled to revive demand. And revive means what? To bring back, right? If your health is declining, you want to revive your health, right? You want to bring it back. If you say right now we need to revive our economy, let's say your economy is in bad shape or it's going down, you need to revive it. You have to give it new life, right? So why don't we say together, revive. Revive. Right, and if you want to turn this into a means, you add an AL. We say revival, right? So why don't we say together, revival? Okay, so they're struggling. They're having problems reviving demand. Okay, and so if you don't have enough demand, then your consumer sector is going to fall, right? If your 消费者 are not spending money, there's no demand for products, then which means everything starts to go down. Okay, so they're trying to revive demand and pressure mounted. Okay, now of course pressure is 压力, but often we say pressure mounted. Mounted means grew. Okay, it's that word, often we use that word mounted with the word pressure. Pressure mounted, mounting pressure as a 形容词. Okay, on Beijing to release more direct policy stimulus. Now, what is stimulus? It comes from what word? To stimulate, yeah. And to stimulate often means to increase demand or increase something, right? So if you can say, what's one of the most stimulating smells that I can think of is coffee, right? When you smell coffee, especially fresh coffee, it stimulates my appetite. It makes me hungry. I want to drink it. It smells so good, right? So we say that smell stimulates my appetite, my hunger. So anything that kind of awakens. I guess that's a good word too. If you want to stimulate something, often it means to awaken. You know, to awaken means to wake up, right? To wake up your appetite, your hunger for something. Okay, so to awaken something. Okay, so why don't we say together, to stimulate, to stimulate, to awaken, to awaken. You know, of course, awaken means to wake up, like you wake up in the morning. Okay, so stimulus is a 名词 that comes from the word to stimulate. It means you're going to do something to stimulate the economy, right? To make it go again, right? There's different ways to do this, but we say stimulus. So why don't we say together, stimulus, stimulus. Okay, so yeah, this is a big issue there. Okay, so let's read this. China's consumer sector fell into deflation, and factory gate prices extended declines last month. As the world's second largest economy struggled to revive demand, and pressure mounted on Beijing to release more direct policy stimulus. Stimulus. Okay, you know what policy means, right? Like 政策, right? Yeah. Okay. Fear is growing that China is entering an era of much slower economic growth, akin to the period of Japan's lost decades, which saw consumer prices and wages stagnate for a generation, in stark contrast to the rapid inflation seen everywhere. Okay, now you know what era means, right? Era is like what? Like a 时代, right? 年代, right? Why don't we say together, era? Era. Okay, so it's entering a period of time. It's entering an era of much slower economic growth. Now, here's a very interesting word. It says akin to the period of Japan's lost decades. What's this word akin mean? Similar to. Okay, so we say akin to, it's like or similar to this period of Japan's lost decades. So if you say, how we use this word? You could say, this project or my idea for this project is very much akin to that idea or what he's doing. It means it's similar to that idea. So yeah, it's a word we use not every day, but it is a word we use sometimes. Akin, and we always say akin to something. It's similar to something. So why don't we say it together? Akin to. Akin to. Okay, now here they're talking about a period of Japan's lost decade. Now you know what a decade is, right? 10 years. But here it's decades, so it's 几十年, right? And when we talk about Japan's lost decades, it means starting in the 1990s, Japan's economy was in this period of stagnation. Okay, so it says here, these lost decades which saw consumer prices and wages. Now, what's another word for wage? Salary, income, right? Their wages stagnate. Okay, now this is a great word. Stagnate means what? Yeah, it doesn't move. It stays still. It's a word that's very similar to stagnate. Well, recession is more of an economic, but when I think of something that's stagnant, it's a little bit similar to the word it's stale. It doesn't move. It's not moving. It's just sitting there, and not in a good way, right? So if you say the economy is stagnant, it means it's not growing. But if you say something is very stale, it also means it's not fresh, right? Nothing's happening. So the words are slightly different. I mean, one's not fresh and the other one's not moving. But it kind of has that same idea. So yeah, if we say something is stagnant and we want to turn that into a noun, whoops, forget that. We say stagnation. Okay, this is a condition where nothing is moving, nothing's changing. Okay, so why don't we say together stagnant, stagnant, stagnation, stagnation, stale, stale. Okay, so basically consumer prices and wages did not move. They just stayed the same for a generation. A generation would be like a 年代, right? An entire generation. In stark contrast to the rapid inflation seen elsewhere. Now, contrast means what? Yeah, 相反 means the difference. If you want to compare two things, we say the black and white are contrasting colors, right? One's black, one's white. They're very, very different. So you can say right now, Taiwan is a very democratic country in contrast to North Korea. Okay, means when we 比较, when we compare something, their difference is very big. And stark also means it's very clear. It's very obvious. So stark contrast means it's very, very clearly very different. Okay. Does everybody understand that? Why don't we say it together? Stark contrast. Stark contrast. We could say a very clear contrast, but yeah, stark contrast to the rapid inflation seen everywhere else. So everywhere else we're seeing this strong inflation, but then here, this other place in Japan and now maybe China, there's this deflation, there's this stagnation, nothing's happening, right? Or even going down. Okay? Okay, so let's just read this together. Fear is growing that China is entering an era of much slower economic growth, akin to the period of Japan's lost decades, which saw consumer prices and wages stagnate for a generation. In stark contrast to the rapid inflation seen elsewhere. Elsewhere. Okay. Okay. Elsewhere means other places, right? Elsewhere. Yeah. Okay. It says China's post-COVID-19 recovery has slowed after a brisk start in the first quarter as demand at home and abroad weakened, and a flurry of policies to support the economy failed to shore up activity. Okay, so there's these very specific expressions and words we use often with things like the economy. So, of course, we post-COVID-19 recovery means after COVID-19 recovery has slowed after a brisk start. What does brisk mean? Fast, quick, moving very quickly, moving along. So what do we use the word brisk to describe sometimes? Business, you could say business is brisk. It means it's going quite well. It's moving along fastly. What else? Well, I guess so, but I think it'd be better to say, you mean like an active life. I think it'd be better to say, when you say brisk life, it means it's almost like, it sounds like it's short, a short life. But I'll tell you, we often say the brisk wind, right? Feng, you know? So you can say today there's a brisk wind. The wind is kind of, it's breezy. The wind is moving very quickly. A brisk walk. You know, they say walking briskly is good for you. Not walking slowly, but actually a brisk walking means walking quickly, fast. Okay, so why don't we say together brisk? Brisk. Okay, so a brisk start means a quick start, a fast start. Okay, in the first quarter, as demand at home and abroad, overseas, weakened, it dropped, and a flurry of policies to support the economy failed. Now, there's another good word, flurry. What does that mean? Yeah, but it means almost like I don't want to say explosion, but like a burst, a whole bunch of things happening at one time. So if you say there was a flurry of activity, it means suddenly there was lots of activity. There was a flurry of new projects. It means suddenly there were lots of new projects. So it's something that happens very quickly, and there's lots of it. Okay. This word gets used in another way. You'll never see this in Taiwan. But in America, we talk about a snow flurry. When it's snowing, you know, 下雪, when there's suddenly lots of snow and it comes down, but it's not real heavy snow, but there's just lots of snow blowing along, and it's not like coming down really heavy, but it's sudden and it's kind of blowing, this blowing snow. We call it snow flurries. But anyhow, don't worry about that. Here it means like a sudden burst of activity. Okay? You know, burst is like a small explosion. Okay, does everybody understand that? So if you say there's a flurry of activity, a flurry of new projects, a flurry of means suddenly a bunch of things happened. Okay, so why don't we say together flurry? Flurry. Okay, so what happened quickly? A flurry of policies, of government policies, projects, government action to support the economy failed to shore up activity. Now, what is another way of saying to shore up means what? To shore up means to what? Means more actually to strengthen, to support, okay? When you shore something up, it means you make it stronger, you support it. So let's say this building is too weak, and the government says, you know, you need to shore up this building so that when the earthquake comes, it doesn't fall down. So we say to shore something up, to shore up support. To shore up activity means to support it, to make it stronger. Okay? So why don't we say together, shore up. Shore up. Basically, the Chinese government tried a bunch of policies to create more activity in the economy, to make it more active, to make, you know, get people spending money, and it didn't work. It failed to do that. Okay? Okay, so let's read this. China's post-COVID-19 recovery has slowed after a brisk start. In the first quarter, as demand at home and abroad weakened, and a flurry of policies to support the economy failed to shore up activity. Right. Okay. That's a photo caption. It says the consumer price index, or CPI, last month dropped 0.3% year on year, the Chinese National Bureau of Statistics said yesterday. We don't have to read all this, but I want to note, what does year on year mean? If we say year on year, it means compared to the same time last year. So, for example, if we say this month our sales are up 3% year on year, it means this month is August, right? It means this August compared to last year, August, it's up 3%. Not for the whole year, but just for this month. August compared to last August. So we say year on year. Okay. So, yeah, that's what that means. So let's go to the next one. It says that was compared to the median estimate of a 0.4% decrease in a Reuters poll. Yeah, these are all statistics. Kind of boring. Yeah. I'm just jumping forward here because a lot of this is just numbers. But anyhow, it says it also shows China's slower than expected economic rebound is not strong enough to offset the weaker global demand and lift commodity prices, he said. Now, slower than expected, of course, becomes a 形容词. It means it was slower than expected, right? So it becomes, this whole word becomes 形容词. Economic rebound. And this is a great word. What does rebound mean? Yeah, not when we're not talking about the economy, what often rebounds? What's the basic thing that rebounds? A basketball, like a ball, right? So if you take a ball and you throw it against the wall, it will rebound. It'll come back at you, right? It bounces back at you. But this word gets used in many different ways. Let's say somebody breaks up with their girlfriend and they immediately find a new girlfriend. We say they're on the rebound, or that's a rebound. Many people try to avoid those relationships, right? You say don't date her because she is on the rebound from her old boyfriend. I mean, she just broke up with her old boyfriend, so she's looking for a new boyfriend. So she is on the rebound. I mean, she's bouncing back. So rebound can have many different meanings, but it means to bounce back, to come back. Okay. So here they're talking about economic rebound. It means, of course, the economy was down during COVID-19, and then if it rebounds, it means it comes up again. It bounces back again. But here it's a slower than expected economic. It wasn't as high or fast as they thought it would be. You know, everybody thought China's economy would rebound very quickly and very strongly after COVID-19, but it's been slower than expected, or we could say weaker than expected. So the slower than expected economic rebound is not strong enough to offset the weaker global demand. Now, when we say to offset something, what does that mean? It means to make up for something else, okay? So let's say, for example, right now it says that there's a weaker global demand if the China had a very strong economic rebound, it would make up for, it would offset. So basically, this is your economic global demand is going down, but China's economy is going up, then it offsets it. It's almost like it balances the two, right? But that's not happening, right? I mean, global demand is weak, and Chinese economy is not going, so it cannot offset, it cannot make up for, it cannot balance the other side. Does everyone understand that? To offset something. So anyhow, there's some good words here. So why don't we say that word together? Rebound. Rebound. Offset. Okay. And it says here, weaker global demand and lift commodity prices. And what's a commodity? It's something that, yeah, it's like goods, but it's something that we sell in very large quantities. Like, what's a very common commodity in the world? Oil. Yeah, oil is one of the most common commodities. What else? Recently, I was reading an article that we have problems again because Russia does not want to allow the grain to get exported. So grain, like wheat, is a commodity. Rice is a commodity, right? We sell it in very large quantities, and yeah. Some people would even say that, 半导体, semiconductors are a commodity now, right? So anyhow, These are, why don't we say together, commodity. Commodity. Okay, so let's read this together. It also shows China's slower than expected economic rebound. Sorry, let's read the smaller part. It also shows China's slower than expected economic rebound is not strong enough to offset the weaker global demand and lift commodity prices. Commodity prices, he said. Right. So if China's economic rebound was very strong, that would lift commodity prices. Then you would see oil and all the other things going up, right? But it's not. So the economy prices are not rising. They're actually still very weak. Oil is still pretty weak in terms of prices. So yeah, this is it's not good for China, and it's probably not good for the world either. Okay, one more paragraph, and then we'll be done. It says the data came a day after trade figures showed exports and imports both slumping last month, and follows a spate of reports on more debt troubles in China's giant property sector. Worried consumers and companies are hoarding cash rather than spending or investing it despite lower interest rates. Okay, now there's some good words here. Trade figures, these are numbers for trade, showed exports and imports both slumping. And what does slumping mean? Going down. Often we think of the word slump, it's the way you stand, right? If you are slumped, you're standing like this, your shoulders and your back are slumping. So, when I was a kid, my parents would all say, don't stand up straight, don't slump. Okay, slump means to go like this, right? Stand. Yeah. So that when we say the economy is slumping or the trade is slumping, it means it's going down. So why don't we say together, slumping. Slumping. Okay, now it says this follows a spate of reports. This is an interesting word, spate of. When we say a spate of something, what does that mean? It's very similar to the word we just learned, flurry. Okay, so it's like a burst of, it's a bunch of, okay, of reports. It's not a little bit. When we say spate or flurry, it means there's a lot, okay? So why don't we say together, spate of reports. Spate of reports. Okay, on more debt trouble. Of course, remember this word we say, we don't pronounce the B. We say just debt, okay? Let's say again, debt. Okay, in China's giant property sector, their 房地产, of course, is huge. Okay, worried consumers and companies are hoarding cash rather than spending or investing. And what does the word hoard mean? H-O-A-R-D. Yeah, when you hoard something, it means you gather as much of it as possible and you just keep it. You sit on it. You don't do anything with it. And so what do we hoard? We hoard money. We can hoard gold. Antiques, food. During COVID-19, I kept more food in my house because I thought, what if we can't go out, right? What if I get sick and I can't go out? I have to eat at home. So I hoarded more food at home. But hoarding is funny. It's an expression we often use for unhealthy behavior as well. People in America and other places, we say people. If we say somebody is a hoarder, it means they never throw anything away. Okay, so if you go to their house, there's just all kinds of stuff there, right? All kinds of junk there because they never throw it away. And so there used to be on TV, there was a TV show where people would go to somebody's house and they would help them clean out their house, right? Because there was just too much stuff there. I know in Taiwan I've heard about this too, where somebody, some store or shop, and they just collect more and more stuff. And pretty soon their neighbors are complaining, right? Because there's too much stuff there. We call that hoarding, okay? So why don't we say together, hoarding? Hoarding. And the word hoard can be used as a 名词. That means a hoard of gold, a hoard of junk, a hoard of money. It means it's a large collection of stuff that you've saved. Okay? So they've been hoarding cash rather than instead of spending or investing it, even though interest rates are lower. Okay? Any questions on this? Okay, so let's read this and then we'll be done. The data came a day after trade figures showed exports and imports both slumping last month, and follows a spate of reports on more debt troubles in China's giant property sector. Worried consumers and companies are hoarding cash rather than spending or investing it. Let's say it again, spending or investing it, despite lower interest rates. Okay, so yeah. Okay, well, that's all we have time for today. And so I guess I'll see you on, what's the next date? Okay, yeah. Okay, great. We'll see you next time.